Hey, Raj, you're muted.
Oops. Yeah. Helia.
Hi. Yeah, waiting for more people. No, let's give it a few more minutes. I'm gonna post it now.
It's like your voice is kind of breaking up.
Oh, am I breaking up?
Like it could be my internet as well. So maybe you just wait for the next person.
Okay,
Then-
yes, sure. I can hear echo when I talk to you, so I don't know.
Fetch headphones then. Just be back in a minute.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know, like 37 people added themselves to the Slack group channel. I guess it's called the channel. And what is it? Oh, hi.
Hello.
Okay, there's people joining.
Hello.
Oh, I'm gonna turn on my video since there are people actually in here now. Yeah, so I'm Ilya. Nice to meet everyone. How do can you guys say your name so I know how to pronounce them?
My name is Jan Feng. You can just call me Jane.
Jen, nice to meet you.
Yeah. Nice to meet you. Yeah.
And Prashant, right? Or am I?
Yep.
Okay, cool. I think Rahul also wanted to come. But I think we can get started and he'll join later if he makes it. Yeah, so I guess, so just a some brief context. I'm Ilya. A couple of words about myself. I'm from Russia. I went to UIUC for my undergrad and decided not to stay in the US, moved to Lisbon, Portugal. So I work here right now and live here right now. And I work as a systems engineer at Cloudflare, and I'm kind of very excited about learning and diversifying my skills with the MCS program. Yeah, and this particular idea for an NLP open reading group came to me because my friend is doing something similar with like undergrad classes at UIUC, CS classes, and the point is not to like I guess the fact that we're in the same class is not really that relevant as the fact that we're all interested in the same topic. And the idea is that as I'll be reading, doing the literature reviews, and I'll probably like doing some readings by ourselves to have some cross-pollination of ideas or whatever to give each other more context on what we're doing, because like people are going to be picking their own topics for literature reviews and going fairly in depth in different topics, and it just like good and fun citizenship to meet other people and to actually educate them on what you're going relatively in depth on. Yeah, so if you all also want to introduce yourself, you're very welcome. Just maybe like a couple of words. So
I can go next. Yeah, so briefly about myself. I'm currently based in Toronto, Canada. So I did my first master in biomedical, and now I'm like switching more to the software side. So that I joined the UIUC. As for the currently, I'm working in a hospital organization doing like telemedicine for the entire Ontario network. Like because of the pandemic, like everyone's want to like get online access to the hospital resources. So I'm doing that like as a system kind of engineer there. Yeah, so as for this group, I think it's really unnecessary because like the field is moving so fast that like the knowledge in the textbook may not be up to date, and then we need to like keep an eye on the like papers that maybe give us like more inspiration on the topics and more in depth and more up to date knowledge about the topic. I think like joining this group is actually really helpful in doing that.
Cool. Yeah. Nice to meet you, Jen. Yeah. Very great. Are you going to be taking deep learning for healthcare? You said you already have a lot of biomed context and knowledge.
Yes, I'm planning to, but like there's like a conflict in time scheduling, but definitely is on my radar right now.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Cool.
I could go next. I'm Raj, and I'm based in London and working as a software developer here. I've been doing like a combination of like web and like Spark stuff and a bit of like high performance computing stuff at work right now. And effectively, it's like isolated me from like a lot of other fields that are kind of coming up or like I haven't touched on in my undergrad. So that's like the main stuff that I was looking to go into with the MCS degree. And also that it like really leads well into the reading group because it's like, oh yeah, I have no idea about all these topics people are looking at, but it leads to a really good set of discussions. That's the main thing I'm looking forward to.
Nice to meet you, Raj. Once again, because yeah, we had a call previously, so yeah, but glad that you're here. What about you, Prashant?
Good afternoon. I am in Illinois, so it's I'm about 3 hours from Chicago. I am currently working for an insurance company out here in Central Illinois, and I mostly work with the claims department. I've been with the program for about a year now. Yeah.
What classes have you taken?
I'm sorry.
What classes have you taken so far?
This is my first. I took data visualization, data mining, data curation, and there was one, and CCA.
Oh, okay.
So these has been, yeah.
I see. Nice. Cool.
Yeah. Nice to meet you guys. And I would be more of an audience for this class and this session. I just wanted to see how things go and what really is the it sounded interesting, so sharing ideas. So that's the reason why I'm here.
Yeah, I wanted to make it very casual, so I'm gonna share my screen here. I just need to figure out which one. Okay, this one, I think. Can people see? Okay, this is the paper. Can people see the paper on my screen?
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Actually, one here. Okay, never mind. So, yeah. So the way. Oh, can I get like a quick show of hands if anyone has read it, or because it was linked by the professor? No. Okay, people haven't read it. That's great because this makes things easier actually. So I think this was a very good candidate for the first discussion because it essentially requires no knowledge of NLP. You can read it as like not even have taken the first week of the class and just like kind of argue and with the authors of the paper because some of the ideas here are highly debatable. And yeah, so I feel like it could be a good first conversation starter. And so I'm sharing my screen because I think it makes sense for us to read the first few sections, then discuss, and then do this again. And I'm going to be sharing my screen so that you see where I'm reading. But you can also, I'm going to send this link to the chat so that you can pull this up on your own screen if that's easier for you. Oh, is this the right one? Okay, this is the wrong. Sorry, this is the wrong link. Okay, this is the one. Climbing towards NLU. So the second one, you can just click PDF. It should take you. Yeah. So my suggestion is to take 10 minutes to read the abstract introduction and the first and the second sections there. So the first two pages, and then we can chat about it for a second, for a minute. Yeah. So I'm gonna mute myself and read this stuff because I have to refresh my memory. I'm trying to see if there is like a raise hand feature where people can raise hand when they're ready, but I can't find that in Zoom. I don't know. Does anyone know if there is something similar?
Like it's under reactions.
Actions? Where is that?
Under reactions.
Oh, reactions?
Reactions. Yep.
Oh, wait, where do you see that?
Like in the bottom bar. I think you'll have to like switch over to the Zoom window because you're sharing your screen, you can't see it.
Oh no. Wait, where is this? I have so many windows, I always get lost. Okay.
Like that's basically all of us, I guess.
Oh, okay, I see people are doing that. I guess I don't have that. Yeah, so if people want to discuss the specific questions like as prompts for discussion that I wanted to ask are, do you guys, in your experience, have you ever seen a model that seemed like it exhibited understanding of language, and how would you define actual understanding? Because they kind of, where was it? They said that somewhere they said that if language terms such as understanding meaning should be defined or not used when speaking about language models. So have you seen anything that seems like it understands language? Have you, what does it mean to understand language, and what are the dangers of saying that things understand language when they don't? Those are kind of my discussion prompts for this section.
Yeah, so I haven't like read the rest of the paper, but like from the first few sections, I feel that like the notion about like understanding the language seems pretty important for those researchers. That like, okay, a machine is not only like understanding the form, and not only recognizing the form, but also understanding like the language. So that like, it seems that like it is a prerequisite for a language model to generate new languages, like kind of like reason flow or something like that. I think that's why they want the language model or some mechanism to understand the language, not as superficially recognizing the form and then replicating the form.
But what would be the difference? You're saying to you need to understand to actually create sentences, but like the existing models can create them pretty well, like stuff like GPT-3 and BERT. So what is the difference in your intuition?
Yeah, I think like if you are understanding a language, then you can express with language your intention.
Okay.
But if only like for like recognizing the form and then generating according to the form probability distribution, you will always generate something that's similar to what has already been said.
Okay. I like that. I very much like it because I've read it and I know that the intentions are going to be useful in the author's definition of meaning. Yeah, but also interested in what others have to say.
But like coming back to what happens like for our language learning, like we first exposed to the form like while listening to others like conversation, and then you start to learn. You don't start from the other end though, like you don't start from grammar.
Okay.
And then reverse back to like speaking grammatically correct sentences.
So are you trying to say that you ultimately need some sort of like grounding data where the model has to have some like physical quote unquote experiences to actually be able to reason?
Yeah, so I think like the first exposure should be to the form, not necessarily understanding. I think like understanding is from exposure to a large amount of language sentences.
So just so I'm sure I understand, are you saying that you can get understanding by just having enough volume of training data, or do you need some sort of qualitatively different kind of training data than just text?
I'm not saying definitely, but just like to mirror what a human being learn language is that you start from listening to exposure to a large amount of like pre-existing sentences, listening to like other people's conversation, not necessarily understanding what they intend.
Mhm.
You start learning the intent by like exposure to a large amount of conversation or like the languages.
Okay, I see.
I'm not sure neural network will follow the same process though.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective.
But like a slightly like different thought on like that train of thought is that it's kind of hard to be able to feed in something like this kind of intuition into existing like a really large corpus of text, because like it's really easy to get a lot of these papers or like any set of documents and run it through a model, whereas to be able to provide like all of these like more complex social cues would be like harder. And like so it's almost like by necessity we need to build up through grammar is what I felt like.
Can you say the last sentence once again? I didn't hear it.
Yeah, so it's almost like we need to build up from grammar by necessity, because it's harder to be able to provide like all this other piece of information, because like we don't have a large enough data set compared to like a corpus of documents that we have.
But would a large enough data set solve your problem of language understanding? That's the fundamental question. Like, can you just have more data, or do you need qualitatively different kind of data, or do you just need more text?
Yeah, oh no, like it's almost like we are going after this with like a large amount of documents. So that's the reason why we are just pursuing that. Let's understand it in this manner, like understand from like a sentence level perspective rather than like the intent,
Mhm.
because that's something that's like a much harder problem, because there's not like a readily available data set where we can actually like use it. So that's kind of my perspective.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, that would be my intuition as well. Although, like, I haven't worked with many data sets yet. Hopefully, we'll explore what those are in class. Okay, that's cool. My next suggestion is to read just this third section over here. It also goes on for about 2 pages or a page and a half, I guess, up to list the fourth octopus test. So I'm gonna mute myself once again and Jinfeng, let us know when you're ready.
Oh, yeah, sure. Down. Okay.
Oh, you are? Okay. Yeah, so for this one, I wanted to ask, so this is kind of like the central message is in this third section, and then later in the paper, they just give examples and try to strengthen their point, but really like the central message is centered in this section. And it's all based on like how they're defining meaning and comparing that and saying specifically, I think like this is the most important sentence probably if I were to pick one in the entire paper. Communicative intents are about something that is outside of language, and they're going to give a nice examples about that, right? Like, and they're drawing an argument of entire paper from these few definitions of meaning, communicative intent, and what are those conventional standing meanings? Like, would you agree with their definitions? Would you challenge them? Is this intuitive to you? These are like not very complex definitions. Would you define them differently? Those are my questions.
I don't know. I feel like if I agree with this, it seems like it's hard. Like NLP is actually like kind of pessimistic in a way that like can never like form a model of that. Kind of a mixed feeling for me though.
Yeah, exactly. Like so they're talking, was it here? Symbol grounding, like, and they're referencing this Chinese room experiment, mental experiment. Like my question, if I were in the same room as the authors, I would have asked them this, if they think that the only way to make a language model that actually understands the language is to give it senses and like have it have the same physical senses in the eyes and the nose and whatever as humans. Is there no way to have the same experiences and the understanding without that? It's kind of like, where's the line drawn? What kind of grounding data do you need specifically?
I agree. Like, I mean, it's like the Chinese room like experiment is kind of a perfect example. Like you cannot understand the language by like just looking up the dictionary, like the synonyms or something like that. Because like if you're looking up like a dictionary, that means that you are replacing one Chinese word with another one. But what is the meaning of the other Chinese word? Then you look for another one. But eventually you come into a loop that like, okay, you look for the meaning of A, you got B, look for the meaning of B, you got C, and C back to A, very highly possible.
Have you, well, okay, my question would be to you, like, if this is, so this is not a very complicated argument, it's very understandable, like takes 15 minutes to internalize. Why have we not heard of like Google developing models that are based on things with physical senses and like that kind of stuff? Why is it not something that we hear about often? If this is so obvious, like, or what Google researchers challenged this idea in some very simple way that we're missing?
I think they are developing something similar, like, so for example, like to write a sentence to describe a image, for example. You show a machine image, and then like they just generate a description of a caption about that picture. I mean, like something like more like fundamentally human may not be able to like simulate through a machine. For example, like happy. How to tell a machine what happy feel like, or what is the situation of like emotion or something like that.
What do you think, Fresh?
Like still trying to think through the part of how like a Google researcher might approach this, and yeah, like don't have a solid enough opinion on it yet. Like,
You're very quiet. Sorry, I don't know if it's the same.
yeah. So maybe this is better.
Yeah, no, good.
Okay. So yeah, like I'm still trying to think through like a Google researcher's perspective on this. And yeah, can't actually come up with like a solid enough opinion on it yet. Like personally, like the thought experiment makes like perfect sense to me, because it's like, yeah, I can almost see that happening in some cases where it's like you're studying a language for like a really short time, and then you learn to like effectively pattern match. And like it's kind of similar to like what the thought experiment suggests. So like that part seems like very obvious given like a similar experience, but like it's like almost hard then to get out of that bias and like think of it externally. So that's like I'm just trying to go through that part of it, and or like at least trying to force myself to think that way.
Interesting.
Yeah, and also like when you are learning a new language, right? For example, and you just need to like learn those sentences that may be useful for you in that scenario. You will not like learn everything. You just learn a little bit subset of it and then like keep expanding it like outwards when you like you are in a new situation. It's like build up bit by bit instead of like you just like learn the entire dictionary and then like fit like trillions of words into like the situation right you are at here, like in this temperature, in this weather, in this city, in this culture, for example.
Yeah, I wonder how like the state-of-the-art models, how comparable they are to humans in terms of like their extensibility and coverage, I guess. I think coverage is the term, right? Like humans obviously generalize very easily. I wonder how true that is of the state-of-the-art models. I don't really know. To give.
So just like one thought on like something that you mentioned there on like generalization. So like something that I kind of heard was like on code switching, I think is like the technical term. It's like as you start to learn a new language and you start to improve upon it, it's almost like you might switch between like words in like a language you're comfortable with. And like that's how you have your own intent and the way you think of it in your head. And compared to like what you want to express. So it's like you start to like mix the two words. So it's almost like there are like two different systems. So one is like the part where it's like the language level communication and like an internal thing which is like the actual understanding.
Oh,
And
wow. Okay, that's a good thought. I like that. Okay.
And it's almost like the experiment that we would want to see is that supposing a language model can actually do that, then a way to apply or a way to verify that is to train a model in, say, English, and then start feeding it like a Chinese corpus of text, and then see if it can achieve like similar levels of like understanding in codes,
right? But with
a relatively more limited amount of text, because that's almost then actually building upon what you know, rather than like learning again from scratch.
That's pretty good. That's I like that.
It's just like the front end and back end of a system. So like the form is like front end and then like the understanding is the back end.
Nice. To give Dinesh some context, so this paper, it was linked by our professor in the first week slides, I think, and it kind of says, hey, journalists keep calling these GPT-3 and BERT models as something that understands language, and that's very bad and detrimental to the industry, and really they don't understand language. And we're going to prove why they don't understand language. And their argument is sort of goes as follows: that these models are all trained on what they're called form data without actual meaning, underlying meaning. And they argue that just by being trained on this form data, the models cannot infer and start understanding meaning just out of nowhere. That just can happen because they don't have training data for meaning in their data sets. And they introduce some specific definitions here for meaning, or they say those are pairs of language expressions and the communicative intents. And then they say that, like, in contrast to models, how humans communicate is that they take, the speaker has a certain communicative intent, write what I want to convey to the other person. And I choose an expression from my vocabulary with a standard meaning. The standard meaning is essentially some constant about that doesn't change in different interpretations about specific words. So I choose some specific words. I know that they have a standard meaning S that doesn't change. And I feel like that standard meaning, those words are good enough in our particular communicative situation to convey my intent to you. And then I give those words to you, I speak them out or send you a message. And then you as a listener, upon hearing E, the expression, you reconstruct S and use your own knowledge of the communicative situation and the hypothesis about the speaker's state of mind and intention in an attempt to deduce I, the communicative intent. And the argument here is that the models do not have the understanding of communicative intent because that's something that lies outside the language fundamentally. And this sounds very abstract, especially if you didn't spend extra 20 minutes reading the paper. So the authors actually give three very nice examples here. And to save us some time, I'm just gonna recap those examples real quick. So this one is the one they call the Octopus Test, and this is sort of a weaker model of the Turing test. So the idea they propose is that imagine two people being stranded on different islands. One is on island A, the person A is on island A, and then person B is on a different island, and they're like, there's no one on their islands, they're alone, completely alone, they're stranded, but they do have telegraphs and they can communicate over messages with each other. And they start communicating like they're having fun, they both speak English and like they share their experiences, et cetera, et cetera. And then this hyper-intelligent deep sea octopus plugs into the, I don't know how telegraphs work, but it starts being able to intercept the messages. And at first it's a hyper-intelligent animal that just starts eavesdropping and listening, and it starts drawing some conclusions from the fact that these signals occur next to these signals, and then these signals seem to be in the same context, and kind of, so the octopus starts inferring what the synonyms are, what the antonyms are, and noticing some lexical patterns, hypothesizing that they can be used somewhat interchangeably. But the problem with this octopus is that the O octopus has never observed the objects that are the A and B are referring to in their sentences, and thus would not be able to pick up out the referent of a word when presented with a set of physical alternatives. So to build up upon that experiment, they say, hey, what about O starts? What if O started to feel lonely? And then all of a sudden, instead of just eavesdropping, O says, okay, I'm gonna do a man in the middle attack. I'm gonna cut off B entirely, and I'm gonna get A's messages, and I'm gonna pretend that I'm B, and I'm gonna be talking to A as if I were B. And so the question is, would that make A suspicious? And this is a weaker form of the Turing test because A has no reason to suspect she's talking to a non-human. In a Turing test, the participant knows that he's talking to a machine, or I guess has a reason to suspect by participating in the experiment. Anyhow, and then they ask, like, will O be able to fool A? And there are several levels to this. They say that if A, like O can reasonably make conclusions that if A is saying something, hey, how's your day going? Always replying with, I'm doing great, how about yourself? Works like with 100% reliability. And that is because those kind of messages, they serve the social function and don't need to be grounded in particular physical situations or anything else that's specific about the real world. You can mimic those sentences quite successfully by just knowing the statistical information about past data, and it will seem internally coherent. But then if you introduce a kind of a slightly different situation, let's say that A invented a new device, and then he wants to share that experience with B and asks for suggestions for improvements. Well, will O be able to communicate reasonably in a way that A will keep thinking that it's not O, it's still B. Well, the authors say here, perhaps O can recognize utterances about mangoes and nails as similarly worded because those words appeared in similar contexts as coconut and rope. So O decides to simply say, cool idea, great job, because B said that a lot when A talked about ropes and nails before, and it's absolutely conceivable that A accepts this reply as meaningful, but only because A does all the work in attributing meaning to O's response. It is not because O understood the meaning of A's instructions or even his own reply. So this is, I think, also a fundamental point that like the models that we might have seen in our experience and like our real world experience might have tricked us into thinking that there is some sort of actual natural language understanding, because all this task of interpretation and attribution is offloaded on us as humans, and the model is not actually doing any of it. We're just doing twice the work. This is sort of another case in point is that Eliza case from 1966 or whatever that the professor mentioned, where people thought that Eliza is smart even though it was a bunch of transducers, not even neural models or anything. Yeah. So and then they kind of the octopus experiment is nice, but I think a different experiment, a mental experiment, where the authors really drive the point home is this more constrained programming language experiments. So, right, like their argument was that, hey, let's take the data with the form, but not with the actual meaning, without the actual intent in the training model. The argument is that our language model will not be able to reason from that. Well, how about we do something similar with code? What about we feed the language a bunch of Java code that's available to us on GitHub publicly, but we don't actually train the model on the output of the Java code. We just train it the source code, and then we ask the model to produce the program output. Like, obviously, it will not be able to do that. Or similarly with English, what if we feed the model a bunch of text, and then all of a sudden we start showing it pictures and ask it questions about pictures, like how many dogs are in the pictures, how many of them are jumping. The model will not be able to reason about those pictures, even though it knows a bunch of English and has trained on English a lot. So those are specific examples. Yeah, I'm wondering what you guys think about these.
Hi, that's a very concise context given by you. Thanks, Ilya, for that. And secondly, I didn't, delve into the research paper till this much length till now, since I was occupied in, reading Jurafsky. So that's why. But yeah, that is something is there in backdrop, since I've been related to this field. And yeah, this is a very concise research paper also for that. So yeah, we can, I think, carry on from this point. And if there is anything there, you can, I think, just refer me if there is anything that's from the past.
Yeah, for sure. No worries. This requires pretty much zero knowledge. Yeah, I'll send you the links. Any thoughts on the experiments? Would you have do you have any other ideas for mental experiments that you could have used here? Or maybe
yes, for the octopus test, I kind of like really like agree with that like human like has an intention to actually like fill in the meanings to what they hear, and then as soon as like internally I can think of like a logical kind of understanding for what I hear, then I just like response based on that. I think like it's kind of similar to like what I have done in my like primary school, like where I got like a poem like written poetry like written a poem written by like a poet like kind of like 1,000 years ago, and it's like 16 words, and then we need to like write a passage of 800 words to explain like what the poet was
Right.
something like that. So I totally agree that like, okay, we are doing the understanding. A is doing the understanding, not necessarily always actually like giving out something that's meaningful.
I just wanted to, put my thought here that let's say if there's a person who is blind from birth, do you guys think that even he won't be able to, if he has not seen it, if he has not seen, things that they won't be able to understand the meaning? I mean, like, is seeing all, is it everything? What do you guys think in the case of someone who's blind?
Right. Yeah, that's a great question. Like, do you understand the color blue if you've never seen it, or if you have color blindness, for example? Like, do you have the same concept of the color blue as other people?
Not just colors. I mean, colors would be very easy for like in this context. Like colors in case of blinds, I would say that's easy because blind person might not have sense of it. But yeah, let's say the kind of size the object has and like the physical properties of the objects and all those stuffs to describe them maybe, and by just reading about them and telling someone else about it. So all those sorts of things also, is it possible for a person who is blind to understand it? And if that is possible, then why not machine?
Well, probably because there are still some other senses left. That would be my guess. Like specifically touch.
Yeah, I think that the sense of its own height and the knowledge of its own height and comparing it with others and maybe giving adjectives. There are a lot of things I think that are working here. But then yes, if we have those senses in computers, then I think combining things can maybe lead to NLU. That's what I used to think. That's why I'm presenting here my thought.
Oh, wow.
I mean, there is, I think, a very famous, for understanding things, there is, I think, object based modeling, which in connection with AI and ML is under works. So I can maybe share some links for that. But there is some guy in, I think, New York or somewhere who's, I think, a neuroscientist or something, who's doing this object-based learning as well as machine learning, so as to feed some meaning from the natural world. So maybe we can look up at that also.
Oh yeah, can you please send the links later?
Yeah, sure. I will. During this talk only, I will.
Thanks. Yeah, I don't want to keep people too long. The last thing, which one I wanted to read?
Oh, is this like a 1 hour session or 2 hours?
1 hour. And like my expectation is that like when people I'm doing like kind of live reading here, so that's why it's taken a while. In the future, if people want to present, like we can speed run a paper in 20 minutes. That could also be possible, or just look at the implementation examples, whatever. It doesn't really matter. But I don't want to keep people for more than an hour.
Okay.
I forget. Oh, okay. Yeah. So I suggest we read these two paragraphs here because they're kind of like the meta conclusion for this paper about what needs to be done about the state of NLP in general. And yeah, the rest of the paper is very verbose and maybe not necessary to be read. Yeah. So my suggestion is let's take 2 minutes to read this.
So in the context that you were giving earlier, I was also having one thought that there is the pair, that is the intent as well as the expression. And there was a term called standing sentence. Can you go over there for once? And I was thinking about something.
Oh yeah, for sure. I hope others are not reading off of my screen. Definition of, yeah, so intents. Yeah. This is
So
kind of definitions.
I was just curious, like here's mentioned on the right side, on the right column, that there's a standing meaning S, S, which fit to express I in the current communication situation. So the author does mean that we can use S to express the intent, but still we are manipulating it into an E so that the third person or the second person can understand. If
Yes,
not right.
So the standing meaning is, so they say here, linguists distinguish communicative intent from conventional or standing meaning, right? So communicative intent is what I want you to understand, and then the standing meaning of the actual words is what is constant across all of its possible contexts of use, right? So each linguistic system provides a relation, pairs of expression, and their conventional meaning. And I think what you're trying to say here is, right, like everyone with a reasonable knowledge of English, for example, has the same knowledge of what conventional, what the standing meanings are. So you pick, so you sort of pick an expression given the standing meaning, I would think. And so, I don't know, like, how do you form sentences? What would be your function? I can really, I guess your arguments would be some sort of I, comma, sorry, S, and then you map into E that you actually use. So that would be my thinking here. I don't know.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I think I was just thinking in the right way. So yeah, that is mentioned, I think, in the definition of standard meaning you just read out. So I think my doubt is clear, and it's mentioned in the paper also. So I think everyone might have also gone through it, so they must be aware. So it's fine now. That's it from my side, I would say. Then, Elia, over to you.
Yeah, so this is a relatively recent paper. It was published in 2020, and yeah, I'm glad that the professor linked it because it's a good introduction, or like it just opens up the class with, here's a problem with the field. There is no doubt that the NLP field is currently in the process of rapid hill climbing. Every year, states of the art across NLP tasks are being improved, and that's great. And the tasks that seemed impossible yesterday are already old news. Thus, everything is going great, but from a top-down perspective, the question is whether the hill we're climbing so rapidly is the right hill at all in the first place. How do we know that incremental progress on today's tasks will take us to our end goal, whether that is general linguistic intelligence? Actually, oh, this could be an interesting presentation too. I have not read this one, it seems very recent. Or a system that passes the Turing test, or a system that captures the meaning of English, Thai, etc. Yeah, so kind of open questions here. And it's a bit of a provocative paper with some interesting ideas in it. And yeah, if you guys later read it by yourself, there is a bunch of question answering things here, like what meaning could be learned from, and they respond to some popular counter arguments in here, and there are some meta level conclusions. Yeah. Oh, and they also have some examples in the appendix where GPT-2 and GPT-3 was not yet public at the time, and other models generate total garbage. So that's interesting. Yeah. Thanks, everyone, for coming. Dinesh, do you want to, and Rahul also, do you guys want to introduce yourself? I guess we can stay for a couple more minutes.
Hey everyone, my name is Rahul Singhal. I'm in Chicago. How you doing? How much more intro did you guys do? I missed it. Sorry guys, I thought this was like starting an hour later than when we actually started. And I got kicked out of Slack. I think they were doing a purge of undergraduates that got into the MCS Slack group. And they thought I'm an undergrad. So I am working to get myself back onto Slack.
Well, that's a compliment in a way, right?
Was that?
That's a compliment.
Yeah, it's great. You know, I love getting carded when I go out to the bars. That's always a compliment. But yeah, what other intro can I tell you guys? Did you guys talk about?
I just introduced myself, where I work and like what I'm interested in.
Okay, well, I'm a full-time student. I'm not working anywhere right now. I'm taking 3 classes. I'm taking 447, 410, and also 435, the cloud networking one. I was taking AML 441, but I dropped it and replaced it with because I'm taking a boot camp simultaneous to this, so I'm getting a survey of ML stuff. If you guys have questions about that, I can give you guys that offline. But yeah, I am very excited about all the stuff we're doing in this class. There's just so much to learn. By the way, I also checked out the syllabus for 536, I think is what it is. It's Julia's, the professor's grad level class on deep learning for NLP. And so, because I know we're not going to touch on that too much in our course, but there's some really interesting stuff. It's all public on that homepage. If you feel up to like going through it, it's just basically the deep learning aspects of what we're doing. My intro.
Thanks. What about you, Dinesh? Or Dinesh? I'm sorry. Sorry it's so late for you, right? You're what time zone are you in?
I'm in IST actually.
Yeah, it's late night there. Right?
I think that's fine. I mean, I sleep around this time only, and this 1 hour meeting before sleep is, I think, kind of therapeutic for me. I think is gonna be because reading research paper is gonna give me a good sleep, I believe. So, so, and yeah, and the other thing is that I'm working right now, and the reason I'm basically exploring this degree and these courses is because I'm thinking about, right now I'm in software development, but I'm trying to, have some hands-on and learnings in machine learning, data science, and all those fields, so that maybe I can contribute in those areas in my, company. So if that's about my, daily activities. But yeah, one important thing that I would like to mention here, since we are all, group of people who are interested in research papers, we can also think about writing one, and I'm really interested for that as well. So I just wanted to mention here, because if we continue this, I think maybe we can at least publish a review paper, like reviewing multiple papers and all those stuff. So just keep your heads up on those things also.
So I have a comment on that, Dinesh. So if you guys want to write something interesting, so I went to the office hours for 410 with the professor, and he's talking about, having something project-wise that maybe could contribute back to the people that are asking questions on CampusWire and maybe even Slack. So I was thinking of architecting the project where we can maybe do some auto answering of questions as they get posted, to maybe ease the burden that the TAs have. If the TAs are more accessible for us to help us with like real problems rather than just like a question that has already been asked. So if we can suck in and digest all of the answers that have already been placed on CampusWire as well as Slack and maybe even Reddit, and then provide back a summary, or maybe even initially it's just a quick search, right? And just do a mapping for that. And then maybe that can be something that can be a paper. I don't know. I've never written a paper, so I don't know what kinds of things people write about. That's part of why I'm doing this as well, is reading about what kinds of papers are out there. It sounds like there's, summary papers of technology, or like different other papers. There's also technology papers. But if anybody's interested in working on that project, I'm going to go talk to the professor for 410, and I'll probably also talk to the professor for 447. But see what kinds of things we can start implementing because we have a captive community of people, right, who are just asking questions, and I don't think they have anything enabled on the back end, but yeah, if anybody's
Yeah, I
interested.
mean, that's a great start. I mean, because this would be from the perspective of, I would say, campus fair and campus. But yeah, thinking on broader scale, I mean, writing research paper would be a little bit broader. I think that, and the other thing is that review papers, like you mentioned, is like what we are doing right now. So that is pretty much um, should be a easy task for us after doing these meetups maybe 4 or 5 times. But yeah, again, coming back to that, that would be, I think, that would be a project. And if we can, maybe we can, publish by in any conference by maybe building up over it. But initially, what I can get from your explanation is something like a project. But yeah, definitely, I'm open for that as well. But yeah, my first preference is maybe doing things more rigorously, and if it's possible to write a research paper, because I don't know about you all guys, but if you are doing graduate course, maybe some of us also planning to do a maybe PhD or some sort. So it's really helpful, and maybe in job search as well, not just PhDs and all those. So that's my thought over this. I think it's clear.
Sorry, I just locked my screen for a second. Yeah, thanks everyone for the suggestions, and great to meet everyone. I don't have much else to say for today. If people want to hang out, feel free. But yeah, otherwise, good to see everyone. I'm gonna end the meeting. Bye.
Bye.